Chances are you do not wake up today and find yourself ruler and leader of a place where millions and millions of people work, play, hang out, and talk to each other. The days of kings just seeing a plot of land and sending over people to enforce their rule and leadership over it, that's changed, right? Things are dramatically different. But Mark Zuckerberg, on the other hand, he's one of those few rare people who get to rule over a large parcel of digital real estate and also influence immensely the world in which we live, the real one. This is the process with Alex Baytal, and I'm going to take you behind a little bit of the antitrust law and the FTC lawsuit that right now is barreling down the road at Meta and Mark Zuckerberg. This month, that power of Mark Zuckerberg's and Meta as a corporation has come under fire. Meta has to explain itself in yet another blockbuster trial. Now, this one isn't about privacy, but it is about an unfair monopoly. The FTC is, of course, claiming that Mark Zuckerberg's company, Meta, has unfairly and unlawfully gobbled up other founders and products. If he loses this, if Meta loses this, there's a very good chance that Meta could be broken up. But it's complicated because it was the FTC itself that originally in 2012 gave Facebook/Meta the permission in the first place to buy Instagram. Now, the same Federal Trade Commission, the FTC, is suing Meta because they are saying that this acquisition of Instagram and also WhatsApp did not enhance the consumer experience. In fact, the FTC is alleging that this is all part of a larger corporate strategy to kill off competitors before they could threaten Facebook. The looming future verdict depends on how the court and Facebook ultimately define the marketplace that Meta plays in. Meta, of course, is arguing that they are in the category of entertainment, not necessarily just social media. If that's an acceptable answer to the judge, then look, they could stand among many other corporations, even as powerful and as rich as they are, and not be the largest monopoly on entertainment. But if the FTC successfully argues that no, Meta is a social media company in a social media market, this could change Meta as we know it forever. The FTC is doing this in part by looking at what happened to those apps that were acquired and also what was going on with potential acquisitions. Think about what happened with your experience with Instagram, Snapchat, or Snap, or WhatsApp. When Snap decided not to sell Snapchat to Meta for a massive amount of money, look at what happened right afterwards. Instagram was forced to create its own version of the Snapper stories. Some people saw that as a positive development in which, look, Meta had some competition, they didn't get what they wanted, so they were forced to develop something for the consumers that provided consumers a choice. Others see this as a sign that Meta just wanted every product under the sun under its own name. This is an argument, of course, again, about intent. Are you just trying to provide your consumers the best possible experience that you can, or are you trying to take out someone else in the market? Or could you even say that that's so neatly divided in two? If you listen to the banter between Kevin Rooney and Casey Newton on Hard Fork, a wonderful tech podcast that's hosted by the New York Times, you might remember that Instagram, as it is today, was not the same thing it was in 2012. We weren't exactly sure how we would be using Instagram for forever. It didn't necessarily behave in the way it does now, especially with its connection to threads, longer form content, and reels. It was, of course, a social photo sharing app, but think about what you use it for today. Facebook itself as a product has also changed. We're not just sharing long blocks of text or looking at, 55 picture albums of that weekend you took to Cabo. We're also playing games and watching live streams and watching hours upon hours of videos. So where's the clear line between a social media market and an entertainment one? This is what the court is going to have to decide in some shape or form. But let's look at where it started with Instagram with this specific lawsuit. You might remember when we started to say that Facebook is for older people. It's where your Aunt Evelyn is still uploading very strangely written text posts and where you are watching different people fight about a various dog. There was a younger group of people who were tending to spend more time luxuriating in the gorgeous photos on Instagram. There was a shift where it just felt cooler. Well, Zuckerberg saw that too, and he pitched the founders of Instagram, who had just about closed on a $500 million round of funding, $1 billion. One of Instagram's co-founders, you have Kevin Systrom and Mike Krieger. Kevin himself said that it was pitched in a way that, look, you're going to come on as co-founders still. Nothing's going to change in that regard, but you're going to have all of Facebook's resources. Think of us like a giant incubator. You're a young company with a future. You have a product Facebook users would love. Let's work together. You're going to retain power and you're going to be in charge, but you're just doing it under our umbrella. And they agreed. Oh, but an internal email has surfaced amid all of this, a 2012 one from the then CFO. That email asked Zuckerberg, look, is this about neutralizing Instagram? And Mark Zuckerberg responded with an affirmative. They needed to kill some of the steam around this snazzy and beloved app, Instagram. This is where Stephen Levy, a tech journalist, writes that we have to make sure that we understand that while there is the same set of facts that both Mark Zuckerberg and Kevin are operating under and that this lawsuit is operating under, there are two wildly different stories here. And these stories matter because a mega corporation like Meta has an immense amount of power to shape the kind of democracy you live in, what you want to buy, and how you see yourself amongst other people. They can create powerful communities that skirt the law or can pay out all sorts of fines. They can spread the kind of information or misinformation that could kill or revive a law. It matters that we know what leadership believes about its responsibility to consumers. There is a best-selling memoir. It's called Careless People by Sarah Wynne Williams. She is currently not allowed to promote that book due to the fact that Meta and their lawyers sat down with her and there was a certain type of arbitration where they said, listen, you can't talk about your time here. This book is about her time as Facebook's first essential global ambassador to the nations. Sarah Wynne Williams had to work on this book in secret, and then she and her publisher just dropped it. She wanted to talk about the product that she helped bring to the world and the way she saw all of that be implemented. A product that she believed in even as her faith in the founders disintegrated. Sarah Wynne Williams would probably argue that Meta is a social media company because of the way that they connect societies together. The book title, however, is a reference to the famous Great Gatsby. It comes from an observation by Nick Carraway, our protagonist, when he looks upon Daisy and Gatsby and the mess that they've made of their lives. Gatsby and Daisy, of course, are having the crash out of a century because they married other people and Gatsby was waiting for her to come back. It's a whole thing. He saw people in Daisy and Gatsby and even Daisy's husband who appreciated and loved beautiful things. But in their acquisition of those things, they were quite careless. Nick watches how four people, in the name of love and ambition, destroy all the things that they are supposed to love. If you can buy or acquire anything, how will you take care of it? And what's really driving your desire to acquire? Is there something deeper underneath there? Kevin Systrom said in his time at Facebook, he realized he left 20 years earlier than he wanted to. This was a product and a project he would have loved to keep working on. And under better circumstances, he would have spent more of his life right there building it. But Kevin felt squeezed and snubbed as Instagram grew in prominence and shininess. Instagram accumulated more social and cultural capital, and as a product, it was doing very well. And then came this question that seemed to be floating around the offices as Zuckerberg started to exert more power over the app, breaking his promise, and also starting to deny the very resources he had told Kevin and Mike that they would have access to. Was he jealous that Instagram was doing so well? Is that fair to ask a founder who just wants his company to be great and big and wonderful? Kevin and co-founder Mike Krieger left in 2018, and by the time that they left, the app itself, Instagram, was worth close to 100 times more than what Facebook had initially paid for it. WhatsApp is another acquisition that features prominently in this FTC case, and it was acquired for significantly more money. But it also came with similar promises to the co-founders that they would retain control and they would have all of Meta's resources to play in. WhatsApp publicly was not going to run ads or sell user data. But internally, Meta's buyout price, when they calculated the valuation of the company, depended on that sort of selling out, or I should say monetization. And similarly, just like Instagram, the founders left in 2018 due to Mark Zuckerberg's increasing control over the app. Of course, Meta can argue no one is forced to take millions upon millions of dollars. No one is forced to go off into a retirement in which you have all the money that you could never spend in a lifetime. But if Meta is indeed imposing anti-competitive conditions on software developers, they are creating a market in which there are just less places for the rest of us to go. Antitrust law in the United States is about making sure that you, the consumer, are not harmed by the actions of much larger corporations. Antitrust law regulates the market and makes sure that that market stays competitive. And in a competitive market, you as a consumer have a choice between products. You get to make decisions about where you spend your money, and those options can be made better because of competition itself. This is just a very obvious, straightforward thing, right? Those options are not supposed to be artificially priced higher or driven to extinction because of what other corporations are doing. A company is not supposed to be using their immense power to acquire, kill, or snuff out other products. These regulations are enforced federally through the Department of Justice and the Federal Trade Commission. And both of these institutions have the power to enforce the agenda and the ideas that are laid out in the Clayton Act and the Sherman Antitrust Act. Both of these acts list the kind of conduct that's not considered killer business instincts, but antitrust, anti-competitive work. The Sherman Antitrust Act is clear that, look, if you have a kind of competitive power over a certain product in the market, you have to maintain that through the merit of your work and the product itself, not through anti-competitive moves that stall off or make somebody else who has a competing product less viable in that market. The suppression through your power of other products to advance is an unlawful thing to do. It's called an unlawful monopoly. In 2019, the FTC issued the most historic, largest penalty that they'd ever issued for a company for violating consumer privacy. And of course, it was against Meta for $5 billion. They also had to reorganize from the corporate level down how they made decisions about consumer privacy. The FTC found that Facebook promised consumers all manner of things about how they could control their data and control their privacy, but internally they were consistently undermining them. The FTC found that Meta was lacking in their responsibility towards their consumers. And they had a responsibility to deliver on a promise that they gave those very consumers about what was happening with their privacy and their choices. The product had to be what the product said it was going to be. What we typically think of when we think of the FTC and consumer harm is mostly our wallets being harmed. Antitrust laws can also be understood about looking at the ways that competition can broadly help and benefit consumers. In this case, one of those broader potential benefits could be having more options in where you place your digital citizenship. Perhaps Meta would be more motivated towards transparency or fact-checking if they knew you could get up and walk. Currently, what is absolutely understood is that, yes, you could quit Facebook, but where are you going? Chances are you're going to another app that's owned by Meta. You can't really quit it unless you quit everything else they own. If Meta breaks your trust, it could be a lot harder to get them to feel anything about changing anything because they've probably already staked out other competition to potentially acquire. Meta as a company is rich enough to pay fines, right? To pay their lawyers, to get out and navigate things most businesses can't. So your bargaining chips as a consumer, which are your attention and your money, have to be legally safeguarded. Both the FTC and Sarah Wynne Williams have warned us of Meta's past carelessness. Other people have to ask, what are the implications of uploading a certain thing when you know you're in a country where certain minorities are under persecution? What if the sale of data could compromise a Caribbean election? Our privacy, our free and fair elections, and generally our relationships to this democracy are dependent on what megacorporations like Meta do. That growth for the sake of growth and not thinking about the impact that it could tangibly have on millions of people, that is something that we have to look at carefully. I really do love using the Meta products in my day-to-day life, but I would also love to see what they do and what other people create if they are given a safe and free environment to do so. Understanding even a little bit about what antitrust regulation is even for helps us break a little bit from this American culture where we just cede power and we think, go for it if you're a founder who is willing to build things and break things quickly. Some things are broken in ways that consumers have to pay for while the founders don't. If we are not careful, if we do not stay alert, immense corporate wealth can weaken your relationship to the democracy and also the community at large. And finally, there's the warning in Nick Carraway's own words of what happens when we sit by, when we watch people like Daisy and Gatsby retreat into their money or the vast carelessness of their own lives or whatever else holds those lives together while they leave other people to clean up and pick up the mess. Antitrust law is supposed to stop messes in their tracks. We will see what the court ultimately says about this one. This has been The Process with Alex Baytall. As always, take care and I'll see you later.